Welcome back to the Politics with Paul podcast, your home for nonpartisan, non-ideological discussion of politics. I am your host, Paul Rader. We've got another guest episode on tap for you today. And for those who are new to the podcast, I always lead off guest episodes by a disclaimer that I do not take a stance for or against political views or groups that they belong to. Now, on to the topic at hand. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution lists 5 basic freedoms afforded to citizens: religion, speech, press, peaceful assembly, and the petition of government to redress grievances. Protests can fall under any of these categories. Now, of course, there are certain limits to protests, though whether you support or don't support a certain protest or not is beside the point. But what is it like to be on the front lines of a protest? How does one get involved with a major protest? How do protesters feel about their media coverage? Here to talk about that and more on today's episode is Luis-Enrique Marquez. Luis is an activist, street organizer, and writer based in Portland, Oregon. He was heavily involved in the Portland street protests following Donald Trump's 2016 election, and he's also the author of a book titled Anti-Fascist, The Portland Uprising 2016 to 2020. Now, when you hear that, you may have an immediate positive or negative reaction. As I said, this podcast does not have a partisan or ideological lean, and we try not to steer too much into those waters, even without taking sides, but it is still important to hear certain viewpoints. So I try to give guests a chance to say their piece to some extent as well. And we're trying something a little different this time. Plus, perhaps people across the political spectrum will get something out of this. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get to that guest and talk about his involvement in protests. Please welcome Luis-Enrique Marquez. Luis, thank you for coming on. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on, Paul. I really appreciate this opportunity and this opportunity to speak to your guests.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let's start at the beginning, which is what I typically like to do with my guests. So, the basics. It's one thing to be frustrated with government. I think all of us have been at some point or another, but it's a whole other step to demonstrate against them. So, what got you involved in protesting? And did you take an interest in protesting early on in your political engagement?
I took an interest in protesting early on in life. I come from a very politically active family. I was born in the early 70s, so right on the heels of the civil rights movement. So, growing up my whole life around our dinner table, we talked politics. My stepfather was an IRA supporter, so we talked politics all around the world. So from a very early age, and then, I think I was a poser skateboarder, when I was like about 13 or so. And so I gravitated towards punk rock. And what appealed to me about punk rock was the political drive, the drive to change things, the drive to make a better world. So I feel in essence that I've been born this.
Okay, I got you. And so, I guess what was the since you said you were born in the early 70s, what was let's go with what was the earliest protest that you were involved in?
Something with the UFW that my parents took me out to go march in San Francisco. That's the city of my birth, the city where I'm from. Um, but then I took, you get older and you don't grow up. You take time away. Started to have a family. I started to write. I was a comedian. And then in about 2015, when I saw Trump running and his platform and everything he was saying, it was time to get active, right? I've always known that the system is inherently racist. I've always known that there is an elementary to prison pipeline for my people. But I've always known these things, but you try to, I guess, work within them as much as possible until you can't work anymore within them, and you say things need to change. Here I am.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody can point to at least something that they they think is wrong and can empathize with that point. Maybe not the exact
Right,
positions
yeah.
you're taking, but they can still empathize with that general viewpoint.
I think so. I would hope so. I mean, we're all human, right? The only ones of us that aren't suffering are the billionaires. So if you're not a billionaire, I think that there's something in there that you could probably pick up a little bit. I would hope, you know?
Gotcha. Yeah. So, well, let's move on to a more recent protest, the one that you really highlight in particular. So, you specifically highlight the Portland, Oregon protests in 2016 in your book. Now, obviously, you're based there, but beyond that, why do you think Portland was the site to choose as part of your protest?
Well, I mean, I think we can clear that up for a minute. I don't think anybody chose Portland. I
Okay.
certainly didn't. I certainly didn't choose to have my city become a battleground. And I don't really travel or participate in actions in other states. My concern is where I live. I live in the Northwest. Sometimes I do go to Washington, but not even then. Mostly I stay in Portland. Um, and what started was we had Proud Boys come. We had people speaking hate. We had neo Nazis on our streets. My city is a huge activist town that's always stood for the right thing, going back well into the 70s and 60s. So we have a history here. This town used to be called Little Beirut, right?
Okay.
So there's a history of standing up in this town. And when hate decided to take our streets across the spectrum, we said no way, not it's not happening. So that's what initially kicked it off in 2016. And then in 2020 when I termed the COVID, so essentially from, we were just concerned with keeping our city hate free. What you want to do in your city, that's up to people in their cities. But here, we wanted it hate free. And that's what made us all come out. And then you had the Proud Boys doing violence tourism, which means that we had Proud Boys in my city flying in from all across the land. Incarcerated felon Joe Biggs was here. No longer incarcerated, but ex felon Enrique Tario was here, bringing his violence. So that's what activated us, right? People should be able to walk down the street and not be harassed.
Well,
And
now on that point, I think most people can agree. But now, obviously, people have their own opinions whether they support or not the Proud Boys, but that basic idea of standing up against hate, that is an admirable quality.
I mean, let me tell you, in my book, Anti-Fascist, a memoir of the Portland Uprising, 2016 to 2020, we had a mole in the Proud Boys. Okay. So in my desk drawer here, I have a list this thick of Proud Boy applications because when you belong to a hate group, you fill out an application listing all their acts of violence that they created on citizens as well as state officials to advance into
Oh,
their group.
wow.
And we published that in my book. So, because those are the Proud Boys to me that are the most dangerous. Enrique Tario, the Joe Biggs, yeah, I can see those guys wherever I walk when I want to. They're very recognizable. The ones that are trying to go back underground, those are the important ones. And that's why they're in the book.
Gotcha. So, in talking more about the response to these kinds of people coming to your city, so obviously, you've got to actually get everybody together and in one and in unison trying to get them to respond to what you're trying to respond to. And it kind of speaks to a lot of these collective action problems, trying to get a large group of people moving towards one goal. So, what were one to two of the most challenging parts of trying to form a massive protest like this?
Okay, so some of the problems that you're going to face that I saw leadership and the problems that they had, because some of the biggest protests in Portland were initiated by a group called Portland's Resistance, right? And so I worked with them for a little while. And part of the problems that you have huge, massive numbers of people coming down to demonstrate. You have the responsibility of keeping those people safe. Okay, so in any large crowd like that, there are always going to be agitators. There are always going to be enemies from the other side trying to sneak in, trying to agitate. Maybe some guy doesn't like the cops and decides to attack a cop car, right? So you have to keep eyes on these things. And for me, that was the biggest problem, is making sure that the people were safe from agitators, from outside sources coming in that were trying to derail what was going on, to hijack it, for lack of a better word.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, well, admittedly, my memory is a bit hazy on these particular protests, but in your estimation, obviously, some media outlets are going to be more favorable, some are going to be more unfavorable to your protest based on ideological persuasions. But in your estimation, what are, let's say, 2 to 3 things that you believe that media in general, regardless of where they fall on the aisle, get wrong about protests in general?
Well, we can see it, what happened in LA recently, and how LA was made to look like a war zone. LA is under siege. The city is destroyed. It was 2 blocks, roughly. It was the same thing here in Portland. Portland's under siege. These crazy militants are running down. They're burning down the streets of Portland. Everything was confined to about like 3 or 4 blocks generally, right? So that's something that the media gets wrong. They make it bigger than what it is. And really, they don't talk to activists. They're looking for sound bites. They're not presenting the problem properly. In Los Angeles, for example, when people were rioting, why were they rioting? Was it that they were deranged, that they were lunatics? Or is it that their family members are getting kidnapped off the streets? Pardon my language, but getting kidnapped off the streets and nobody knows. And that will drive you crazy. That will drive you insane, until you're out in the streets looking like a lunatic yelling, "Bring my people home." Media doesn't do a very good coverage, whether independent journalists tend to, but they don't have an agenda. MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, they all have agendas. Newsmax, they all have agendas. They're all getting paid by somebody.
So, do you think that, and obviously, I think those are things that a lot of people, regardless of political persuasion, can agree on. There's definitely things that need to be changed about how media covers things. Do you think that there's, in hindsight, do you think there's something that activists, along with you, could have done to try to get them to listen to you more, or do you really think that's just not was not going to happen regardless?
Absolutely. Right. So hindsight is always 50-50, right? And I don't know about you or anyone else, but I have never looked at something that I've done in my life and been like, nailed it, mic drop, right? Like everything there was perfect. I might stand by everything, okay? Everything that comes out of this mouth, I stand by. There have been times when things could have been nicer, not so harsh. Um, so yeah, there's lots that people should have learned from those 4 years and taken and improved upon going forward. And I would hope that they have, and that they will.
Got you.
Uh, I,
And
I,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
are you looking? I mean, for example, I think on activist side, there's an unwritten rule, um, that we don't speak to media, because media will twist your words up. Media will help to dox you. Media will get you identified. Media will get you hurt. And while that rule was great for a time and place, that time and place is no longer now. I think any activist that has the opportunity, known or unknown, should be willing to talk. That's just me. And again, even though I am an anti-fascist, I belong to and I speak for no group other than myself, right? So I think that other activists should do the same. If you're protesting wherever, then you have the opportunity to voice why you are protesting and what you are standing for. I think you should.
Gotcha. I think a lot of people, even left and right or in the middle, have a similar viewpoint, or some of them would have a similar viewpoint to don't talk to media because they're going to twist your words. It's, yes, it happens, but at the same time, it's that fine line between how much do you not say something so your words don't get twisted, but then at the same time, you need to be able to communicate with people to actually come to some sort of solution. I obviously there's no real clear answer as to how to do that, but I think it kind of speaks to that. So protests inherently they have some negativity to them. After all, the protest is happening because there is some strong dissatisfaction with government policy. But what are a few of the more positive experiences that you have had as a result of maybe not even necessarily these protests, but other protests you've been a part of?
I think I generally I come away with a sense of hope, right? So I think that's this positive aspect of going on, especially right now when as a human being, every time I turn on the news, it sucks my hope out, right? So I think hope is something that comes out of actions because you're seeing like-minded people, right? You're not alone. Um Things that have come out, solidarity within movements. Again, when you have huge protests of thousands of people, they're not all going to be aligned with each other. They may all be in the same ballpark, right? But you might have communists, social democrats, anarchists, progressives, the list is endless, right? The terminology is endless. And so solidarity comes out of that conversation, learning that we may not be on the same page 100%, but with the big things, we are. And with the big things, we can stand together, fight, and move forward. Mutual aid has come from these. How can I help you? How can you help me? Right? So resource gathering, resource sharing. There are a lot of really good things that come out of the struggle. Um, Even things like friendships. I have marched so many times with certain people to my left and to my right, um, literally facing death, being shot at by the police, being tear gassed, being beaten. And like a soldier in war, those things they bond you together, right? You forever. So there are a lot of really good things, and I mean those are just like the personal things, and then when change happens, when the actual change happens, that's a great thing.
So have you had keeping with this question, have you had any interactions with anybody, not necessarily who is a fascist, but somebody who might have a negative opinion of the anti-fascist movement for whatever reason? Have you been able to have any positive interactions with that
I
side?
I think so. Um, when I sell my book at farmers markets or when at book fairs or something, inevitably a right winger will always come up to me or say something, see a sign of the iron front, which is the three arrows that face to the left, and say something about what kind of communist BS is this. Um, to which I respond, there's no communist BS here. Do you know what these arrows stand for? Generally I'm told no. Maybe some Antifa BS. And we point out that the arrows represent no fascism, no monarchy, and no communism. And we start talking about what it is to be anti-fascist. And we start talking that the greatest generation that this country ever had might have been racist, but they were anti-fascist, right? They might have been racist at home with Jim Crow laws, but they certainly went and put their bodies on the line to fight Mussolini and Hitler. So we start talking about what it is to be anti-fascist. As an anti-fascist, I belong to no political party. Okay. And for those that are wondering, I'm certainly not a communist. I believe communism is a form of authoritarianism. Okay. And if your political praxis requires gulags or re education camps or secret police, I'm not down. By the same token, I'm not down with unfettered, unchecked capitalism. That's what has helped provide the situation that we are currently trying to survive in. So an anti fascist is neither Republican nor Democrat, that they are human. Okay, and so when I start talking to these people about what it is to be anti fascist, that I don't want to tell them what to do or how to live their life. And I don't want them to tell me how to live my life. That if there's no harm to the public, then why do you care?
So you're a libertarian? No, I'm just kidding.
No, no.
I'm just kidding.
Unfortunately, the right has co-opted that word. It's interesting to note that the term libertarian was almost synonymous back in the day with anarchist, right? And I know a lot of my friends that identify as a libertarian. Cool, that's great. It's not for me. I'm an anti-fascist. I am not anything else. I believe that the best way to live is a smorgasbord, right? A little bit of this and a little bit of that. We'll come up with something new because these things, communism, republicanism, Democrats, bro, like, what have they gotten us? They've gotten us to here. I don't like being here. Sorry if
Gotcha.
I'm winded.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the libertarian part was just a joke. I don't actually.
I know.
No, more for people at home. I know you understand, but I just want to make sure that was more just a joke.
Libertarian, y'all are okay too. Y'all are welcome to the party. And
But
you as well. We need everybody.
well,
Everybody needs to get on this train.
well, your answers that you just gave kind of already answered some of what I was going to ask here, but maybe I'm going to see if I can phrase it in a way where it's not something you've already answered. But I mentioned at the beginning of no, you're good. I mentioned at the beginning how you are an anti-fascist activist. You've mentioned it several times, and then that would, for some listeners and viewers, lead to a strong negative, like this guy sucks, or a positive, like this guy's the best. Immediate reaction.
I get
So,
both of those every day on social.
yeah. So, anti-fascists are typically they are seen as a very democratic and or liberal group. So you kind of already talked about what anti-fascism is to you, but what do you think is are the things that people get right or wrong most about anti-fascists in terms of partisanship or ideology?
Okay. So thank you for that question. First of all, let me start by saying that the center is so far to the right now of this country. Um, Anything appears left. With that being said, most of the times people don't like anti-fascists is because they've seen some news coverage of a building, a window, something being broken, possibly set on fire. Okay. Now, this is going to piss a lot of people off, probably, but I hate to tell you all, property damage is not violence. Okay. I have partaken in property damage. Um, I do think that things like that need to be thought through. Are you harming your community by doing it? Or are you helping your community by doing this? Okay. Burning down a little mom and pop store because you're angry, that harms your community. That mom and pop store probably employs people from your neighborhood. That mom and pop store probably gets somebody milk. That harms the community. Breaking the window of a check cashing place, that's perfectly acceptable to me. Maybe not to you or to anyone else. That harms the community, right? So when a lot of people say they don't like Antifa, you have to ask why. And it's generally something like that. But what I like to point out that what people see is 10% of anti-fascist work. Okay, if we had to break down anti-fascist work on a daily, that's 10%, right? 10% I have to go stand and battle the state for what's right. The other 90%, I'm taking people money, I'm bringing people food, I'm lending an ear if you need an ear. If you need a ride to go somewhere, you can call me. We'll go grocery shopping. We'll go take you to run your errands. We're helping out in our communities. Some people need fences being built. And yes, building a fence to help your neighbor is anti-fascist community work, because anti-fascism is just about making your community better, your country better. Everybody wants to be better. I'm not
Got
here to I'm not here to tell anybody how to live. I'm here to help. Now, where people see the aggressive me is when hate comes to my town. You want to be hateful? You want to be a member of Aryan Nations? You want to be a member of the Klan? You want to be a member of any neo-Nazi group? I'll tell you like this, we can get down, because you're not coming to my neighborhood. You're not coming to my town. And if I have to, I will absolutely lay my life down for it. My friends have laid their lives down for it. I am non-different.
Gotcha. So, I
Sorry
mean,
about that.
no, it's okay. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to,
Got a little intense.
trying to tiptoe the line between not endorsing or opposing, trying
Yeah,
to
no.
as much as possible.
And again, I want to put it out there because I am pretty sure you might have a listener being like, Paul has gone on Antifa. Paul has taken the blue pill. Okay. No, you're just some guy who has a podcast who I wanted to be on, and we communicated. And at first bro, you were point blank about like not being partisanship, right? That you have no party alliance. And I think that within that, we have some of the same background right there. Like, just we're non-parties, right? But yeah. So my views, as I always express, are mine and mine alone. They are not tied to any other anti-fascist group, because I'm an individual, and I pride my individuality.
Okay, well, fair enough, I suppose. So, what do you say to people who you talked a little bit about it when you were at the book fair, or no, the farmers market, and you were selling your book. So you touched on this a little bit, but in general, what do you say to people who have a negative opinion about the anti-fascist movement, and how do you try to get them to understand your point of view? How do you have like a specific phrase that you say, or do you just try to say, hang on a second, let me explain? How do you handle it?
Well, the opposite of anti-fascist is fascist. So my question to them would be, well, why do you support fascism? And we live in a fascist country, right? When you look at what fascism does down the line, and you look at what's happening in our country down the line, they mirror each other, right? One of the first things fascists do is build prisons. Alligator Island, Alligator Alcatraz is pretty new. It's a prison. One thing that fascists do is increase the military spending and police spending. ICE is now the 17th largest military in the world. One thing fascists do is try to change history. President Trump has been unhappy with the portrayal of slavery in the Smithsonian. He is trying to change history. One of the things that fascists do is attack the mentally ill. Recently, I just saw a video of Trump blaming crime on the mentally ill and wanting to send them to El Salvador. One of the things that fascists do is pretend to be tough on law and order. It was our president yesterday that pretended to go on a police patrol and then at the last minute quit and backed out of it. So, as far as I'm concerned, I live in a fascist government. I live under a fascist government, and it's my job to fight it. So, when people ask me, I'm anti fascist, or they say they have a problem with anti fascism, I ask them why they support fascism.
Well, do you think that it's not because that? What about people? Do you think maybe they're not supportive of fascism, but they whatever their perceptions of whether it's right or wrong, their perceptions of Antifa that they're more against, or not necessarily thinking about the
Okay.
anti-fascist part. Do you have something more in regards to them? Like if somebody said, "Well, no, I'm not fascist," what do you say to that then?
Well, if they say they're not fascist, then we can talk about what they support. Because you're either going to support anti fascism or you're going to support fascism. Unfortunately, in this discussion, there is no gray. Okay? It can't be, I support freedoms, but it can't be that. Because the minute you say but, we can discount everything you previously just said. So yes, people can say that they are not anti-fascist, and then if we start talking and hey, you support people's right to individuality, you support freedom, you support, kids' right to be LGBTQIA plus or whatever that they want to be. If you support these things, then you're an anti-fascist.
So would you say that there's a a division between anti-fascism as a whole and a group like Antifa? Do you think that there's a sort of
Hey, so
blending of perceptions there?
I do. I do nowadays. I used to not. So in 2020, things changed. People, they're referred to as the George Floyd riots that gripped this country. I refer to them as the COVID riots. Okay. I think people were home and bored and scared and used George Floyd as a reason to hit the streets. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. What was your question again?
No, no, no.
Oh,
I was
okay. Oh,
just,
no, I got it. I got
yeah.
it. So prior to that, when people came to protest or anything, you could meet them, you could talk to them, you could, in essence, vet them, you could give them books, and that's how it was brought along, right? You'd come, you'd meet people, you keep meeting people, you get books, and you became, you learned. In 2020, when people hit the streets, we were so flooded and there were a group of kids because I remember even reading Teen Vogue had an article what to wear at a protest, how to dress like Black Bloc. Okay, so let me set some straight first. Black Bloc is not synonymous with anti-fascism. Okay, they're not one and the same. Black Bloc is a tactic that people use when they don't want to be seen or recognized by the government or media. The right wing, the left wing, people use Black Bloc. So just because you see a group of black clad whatever doesn't mean that they're anti fascist, doesn't mean that they're not. We don't know what they are. Okay. So thousands of people hit the streets. They adopted our style of dress, they adopted our slogans, and they tried to adopt our tactics. And there was nothing there, nothing beyond that. And that's what you have going on now. I appreciate these kids that here in my own town, a couple of kids tried to set fire to the ice building. While I admire their chutzpah, that was ridiculous. That's not anti-fascist. It's not. Well, like, what are you going to do? burn down a building full of innocent people, the detainees there. So anti-fascists need to think about your actions. And if you're protesting, you get one shot only. And once you're caught up in the system, especially in the Fed system, you're done with, right? So I think that's a problem right now. And people that have problems with Antifa, let's talk about it. Let's find out why. You might discover that you're an anti-fascist without knowing that you're an anti-fascist, right? My grandpa was an anti-fascist. Do you think that dude would agree with the way I look? He's from World War II, right? But we have the same praxis. You shouldn't kill innocent people. We should all be free.
Well, I think everybody can agree on those 2 points. Uh, so you kind of already went on to answer this question, but I want to hone in a little bit more on it because my big thing is I really try to hone in on all the things that we can improve on. Yes, maybe some people have more to improve on in terms of how they approach politics than other people, but we all can improve. We're all human beings. So, what are and you went on to it a little bit more, but let's just focus in on 2 to 3 things that you think that the anti-fascist movement as a whole, not specific groups, but the movement as a whole can improve on.
Before I do that, can I answer one thing as a society that we can improve on really quickly?
Sure.
The police. Let me just touch on that really fast. If we take away qualified immunity from police officers, if we make police officers carry their own insurance, like a doctor, if we made laws that 80% of a police force had to live in the towns that they policed, if we required our police officers to have undergrad degrees, preferably in psychology, because that's what we ask our police officers to do, we would have a much uh, uh, we would have less police shootings. We would have less violent police. We would have more community policing. And I think we can improve on that as a society. I think every one of us at some point has had the police look at you as a suspect. As a brown man in this country, I certainly have. And I think if we had a force that was dedicated to protecting the community rather than looking at everybody that they come across as suspicious, I think things would be different. I think we can um improve that. Now, to the left, thank you for letting me answer that. To the left, some things that we can improve on. And I think it's societal. We see it a lot in the left, and I saw it a lot in 2020, and in the protests. Now we see people with their cameras. I'm at the protest. Let me get my selfie. Okay. Um, you're not there for a guy selfie. You're there for you. And a lot of that goes to people want to be seen at actions, and then they're seen at actions, then they can be shot callers and everything like that. And you're not there for that. I think the left needs to be kinder to people. I think the left not needs to not be so arrogant and elitist. There is a certain amount of that when the right calls the left a bunch of elitists. There is a certain amount of that. I think the left needs to be understanding and meet people where they are. The problem is that the right wing in this country is so, I'll say it, racist and fascist, that it's very hard to meet, and they're homophobic. Um, and it's very hard to meet that. But still, I think the left should meet that with love, patience, and kindness, and continuing education. I think we can improve on that. I think the left can improve on reading. I think the left can improve on its own racist issues that it has. Right? Nobody is perfect, and we're going to find the answers together. And the left, but they're learning, they're growing every day, they're getting better. Um, but as long as they don't ever think that they've arrived, because we'll never arrive. We always have to improve. We always have to be changing, and we have to be flexible.
That's a big thing with me in general, not just in politics. I think there's a lot
Thank
of
you.
self not self-aware people, and I try my hardest to be as self-aware. I'm sure there's things that I haven't realized that I can improve on too, and that's not for any party or ideology. It's for everybody. But let's get more into your book since we are running a little low on time. We still got time, but
Okay, great.
let's get more into your book specifically. What made you specifically want to write this book about the Portland protests?
Well, my city went through a historic time. We had 100 days of nonstop protesting. I don't think that happened in any other city during that time. Um, and there were times that it was scary. Um, so I wrote to remember that time. And it's not just my story, it's the story of my friends. It's the story of my city that came out, and that needs to be remembered. People died, right? We had millions of dollars of damage. My house was fireburned. I mean, there are some things that happened during that period that, like, you talk about, and you talk about how un-American. My house was firebombed because merely because I don't like racists in my town. I had a right winger sneak onto my jury and still lose. I was shot at point blank twice in 2020. In 2016, I don't know if you're familiar with doxing, but the very first person that the right wing ever doxed in my community was my 6-year-old daughter at the time. Right? This needs to be it needed to be documented. I say when I tell you I have a stack of Proud Boy applications here in this envelope, I have a stack of them. Right? They're everywhere here. Um, as you can see. And this needs to be documented, right? And their acts of violence and everything that they did. So if somebody didn't document it, then we're going to repeat it again and again and again. And we're already on the process of repeating it. And all I can hope is that my book will encourage others in what it is to be anti-fascist. Um, and hope that you learn from the mistakes that we made and to remember that you're not alone. That's why I wrote my book.
Gotcha. The whole doxing thing. Yeah, no. Unfortunately, I'm quite familiar. Well, not personally familiar with it, but fortunately, but it's happening left, right, middle, even outside of politics. I mean, people are doing this. Even like video games are a hobby of mine. People do it over video games. They're swatting people. It's just
Swatting people is
we,
unacceptable.
yeah.
Doxing people is absolutely acceptable. And let me be clear with that. Um, and I don't really care that they came to my house multiple times, whatever, whatever, whatever. Um, I'm over 18, I'm a big boy. You don't attack children, right? My enemies like to say that they have honor. That my enemies like to say that they have honor and respect. Um, but they don't. They attack children. I've seen it multiple times. Um, they will dox children. So again, I don't mind doxing. But when it's my kid is not responsible for anything I did. Joey Gibson, he's the founder of Patriot Prayer here in my area, which is a right wing group. Joey Gibson's a douchebag. Okay, I hate that guy. I he paid me because I sued him for defamation. Um, his kids aren't douchebags. His kids did nothing wrong to me. They're just kids. Leave kids alone.
Well, I think we can all agree on. Well, I mean, most people can agree, but unfortunately, we don't have everybody agreeing on that point. The whole let's not bring kids into this. But
I mean, it's to the point. Look, I will fight a Proud Boy on site. I will fight a neo-Nazi skinhead on site. Okay, I have no problem doing that. I see you with your children. I'm gonna leave you alone. You're with your kids. Your kids aren't involved in that. So we'll meet up again later. And that's kind of how I live my life.
I don't want to make this sound like a gotcha question, because I
Right? No,
really
no, it's
hate the
okay.
gotcha questions. But
Yeah.
could you also look at it from the point of, yes, even if these people have hateful ideologies, does that necessarily fix things if you go after them, even when they are not with their children?
Okay. No, I've never been beat up by a neo-Nazi or racist, and it's made me change my mind. Okay. I doubt that when I fight them, it will make them change their mind. I doubt that. I'm not looking to change their mind. When we're fighting, I'm not looking to try and impress my point of view on them. I want them out of my town. I want them out of my area. And they will know, come back here again, we're going to be fighting again. And this is going to be the response to every time you come here. And we generally win those engagements. We don't have neo-Nazis in Portland. And the ones that we do have are quiet and crawl under the rocks like they deserve to.
Gotcha. So, last question before we get to the fun, random,
I am so
non-political
looking
question.
forward to that fun question, though. Look at my eyes.
Well, one more before we get to that. So, in our communication, which you brought up a little bit before, one of the things I was a little concerned about was this: is this something that people across the political spectrum are going to be able to take away from? So, you were talking a little bit about answering this question. So, you were saying that there are takeaways in your book for people across the political spectrum, so left, right, middle. So, what are 1 to 2 things that you want as takeaways for each of the following groups: conservatives and Republicans, liberals and Democrats, and moderate independents?
I want to tell you I really appreciate this question. I have my other computer over here to the right because I've taken some time to think about this question. And that what's in my book for them? This book titled Anti-Fascism, right? I think that one of the things that conservative and Republicans are going to appreciate about my book is that even if they disagree with me in the streets and what we're saying in the streets, protecting the right to protest is very important. It's a cornerstone American freedom. And if protest can be silenced, right, then any viewpoint can be silenced. I think that's something that conservatives should take. One thing that they should take from my book. I also think that they should take the danger of unchecked government power. In my book, it shows how heavy-handed policing and surveillance can threaten everybody's liberties, not just anti-fascists, not just Luis Marquez's, but Joey Gibson, Andy Knows, Paul Rader, everybody's civil liberties. Take away one, you take away everybody's. You open the door. I think conservatives can appreciate that from my book. As far as the liberals and Democrats go, I touched base on it a little bit earlier. I think that my book shows that solidarity and coalition building matter and can happen and need to continuously happen, right? It's only by small groups of individuals coming together that we get bigger and we can go. My book shows that that's happening every day amongst groups and it needs to continue. I also think that for liberals and Democrats that they understand that protests drive reforms. I'm hoping you know, and that's one thing. People often say, "Well, why do you stop traffic?" I don't stop traffic because I like the potential for being run over. Okay, and I don't stop traffic because I'm a douchebag hoping to get you late for work. I stop traffic because I hope that 5 minutes or so that inconvenience you makes you find out what's going on and makes you want to drive to change it. It's only through protesting that we have civil rights. It's only through protesting that we didn't have a T on tax, right? So I think that, the libs and the Dems should take that. For moderates and for independents, I think that they should understand that what happens on the streets affects us all, right? And we can learn that from a big Lord of the Ring fan. Do you like
I
Lord
mean,
of the
I
Rings?
like Lord of the Rings. I've seen the movies. Yeah.
I really, it's unfortunate how many times a day I have to use Lords of the Rings as an example. I'm not a nerd, but anyway, um, so Sauron, it's going off and he's gaining power and everything, and it affected even the hobbits up in the Shire, right? Even when they thought it was long gone and done, fascism was overthrown. There's a little pocket that was left that came from the May pocket that was up in the Shire, controlling the Shire. Sauron, who was called the boss, right? And that was the last battle of the ring, right? So I think that moderates and independents think that things can't happen to them, but what affects me will ultimately affect them as well. I also think that ordinary people can make extraordinary change, a big impact. I was a nobody comedian. I'm still a nobody comedian, but because I had the opportunities that I've had, um, I've been able to help people. I've been able to help change lives. And we never talk about the things that we do, except in the most broadest of terms, because I'm not here to toot my own horn. But one person, man, I've helped pay people's rent through this book. I've helped people get meds, food, like I've said, and that just feels good. And one person can do a lot of good or a lot of harm, right? And we can look at that. Mother Teresa did a of good. Hitler did a of harm. One person.
Well, regardless of where you land on the political spectrum, there you have it from the mouth of Luis-Enrique. Now, obviously, however you take it, obviously I can't do anything about that, but at least it's out there for you to hear. So that is going to end the regular questions. So you're going to go on to the random question of the day. For those who don't know, who are new to the show, I always end
That.
off. Yeah, I always end off interviews with a fun, random, non-political question because variety is the spice of life, and it just rounds out the guest episode. So, Luis Enrique Marquez, today's random question of the day is: what is a song that might be or is considered a guilty pleasure by many people, but you have no problem admitting you enjoy? I usually hear this question of what's your guilty pleasure, but I want to know, somebody else might think it's a guilty pleasure, but you're perfectly fine admitting it.
Okay. So I have lots of friends that are musicians, lots of great bands that are out there that tour. Um, and everybody's gonna shit their pants when they hear this. Okay, so a song that I secretly like. Well, I like it. I tap my toes. I'll play it anywhere. Um, is a Christian hip hop band.
Okay.
Okay, so it's like it's it's so bad. It's so good. Um, it's a band called DC Talk.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and it's from their second album, and the song is called Talk It Out. It's really bad. In fact, it's so bad that I do want to give your listeners a little bit of a listen. And I mean,
Well,
and
maybe not play the whole
okay,
song, but or play the song for those of you at home. You can go ahead and look up the song. I was trying to make this a little bit more positive, more like something that you like, and not to say that it's bad. But
Oh,
that's
okay.
you know what, that's okay. That's
I
I mean,
mean,
if you want to give a different one, but
I just I love music, and that's the thing that everybody around me, right? Like, we listen to a lot of ska, reggae, oi, and stuff like that, and then I will come busting down the street with like Joni Mitchell or Leo Sayer, right?
fair
I
enough.
so
I was partially just joking about that, by the way, just to
yeah,
keep it on the fun
no,
side. I don't know. I don't know if somebody might think it wasn't fun that you said that that song is bad, but I was mostly just
I
joking,
mean,
anyways.
I look, yeah, DC talk. I'm gonna bump that. I'm gonna bump that. Talk it out. All about talking to your problems with God and your family. It's really cute, and it just, I like the beat. If it's got a good beat, I can dance to it. Um, or we can go with Justin Timberlake. Can't stop the feeling. Sure, why not? Right? They're all good. Music is music, and music just it I don't know, I'm like in the 95% of worldwide listeners on Spotify. I just love music.
Well, there you go. Well,
So,
you got a lot of musician friends, you said so.
yeah,
Uh,
give a shout out to Shannon and the Clams, give a shout out to Mephistopheles and The Oppressed, world's best anti-fascist band.
well, there you go. For my answer, I'll give you two of them. You know Rick Rolling, right?
Absolutely.
I legitimately enjoy "Never Gonna Give You Up" by Rick Astley. That song, I actually enjoy getting Rick rolled. That song is a banger. Also a banger is, and this came out I think it was my senior year of high school, was "Call Me Maybe" by Carly Rae Jepsen. That that is actually I enjoy that song. That's a
You
banger.
have you
I
have
have
no
no qualms
idea how
admitting
many
that.
times a day I absolutely play "Call Me Maybe," right? When that song came out, we just made fun of it so much. So at least once a day, someone will say to me like, "Well, here's my number. Call me, maybe."
Yeah.
Um, we do that all day. And Rick Astley, Rick Astley, that guy is just somebody. He started off with his hit, went to a joke, right? Went to a complete joke, and now he's coming around. He's playing festivals again.
Yeah.
There's a really good version of "Never Gonna Give You Up" he does with the Foo Fighters. That's
Oh.
live. It's really good. Like
Oh, I have to look
it's
that up.
and I even know the Rick Astley "Never Gonna Give You Up" dance. Like, I yeah. So we learned it all. Like,
It
great
turned
stuff.
out turned out my family's computer, we had, well, I'm sure you remember the days of Napster and BearShare. We apparently had a few, well, maybe it was, yeah, it would have had to have been through Napster, or maybe not. I don't know, but we happened to find one day we had a bunch of Rick Astley songs. I have yet to listen to any of them, but it's like, wait,
He
why is
actually
this? I did not know that this was here.
Yeah, he does a really good, a couple really good Smiths covers. If you like the Smiths, like "There's a Light That Never Goes Out." He's got that crooner voice that, with that style, it's gonna go well, right? You can't go wrong with Rick Astley, bro. You can't.
Yeah,
Fashion, music wise, that guy, yeah, he's
yeah,
here to stay. He slaps.
he's never going to give you up. But
Never.
unfortunately, I'm going to give you up for this episode. Those of you listening at home, because we got to wrap things up. But as always, thank you so much for listening. Before I fully wrap things up, any other media that you want to share?
Yeah, so I am Luis the Leftist, all one word, at X/Twitter, Insta, and TikTok. And my website is antifascistmemoir.com. If you go to my website, little kind of thing, we published a set of text between a police officer and an activist. We got our hands on the whole conversation spanning months. You can find that on my website, and you can see how cops will use everything against you to try and turn you to into a rat, as well as Proud Boy applications. They're all there. So go to my website, antifascistmemoir.com.
Okay, well, there you have it. Hopefully, for all of you at home, whether you're left, right, middle, somewhere in between or even further out. Hopefully, you all have gotten something out of this. I try to, obviously, of course, keep myself in this nonpartisan, non ideological lane as much as possible, but try to strike that balance with letting people, guests, also put out their viewpoints. So, hope you all enjoyed it. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take care.